Hello, and welcome to Appleton Engaged. I'm your host, Timber Smith, Special Assistant to the Mayor for Community, Culture, and Belonging.
And I'm Andy, and I'm the Communications Manager for the city.
And Appleton Engaged is a podcast that explores the many people, organizations, and resources that make our community a great place to live, work, and play. So whether you're a longtime resident or just getting to know Appleton, join us as we learn more about our community together.
Today, we are back with another great organization, and their vision is to create a world where substance use disorder is not the fault of the afflicted and families recover together.
Yes, I am very excited about today's conversation. I've had an opportunity to sit down with this individual before, and we're here to learn today. So this week's guest is Patti Heffernan, the Executive Director of Helios Heuristic. Hey, Patti, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right. How are you today, Timber?
We're doing okay. All right, so you ready to jump in?
Yeah, let's do it.
Can you please tell us a little something about yourself and your association with Appleton and the surrounding Fox Cities region?
For sure. So I was here in high school on and off. I was a Appleton Central Alternative School kid and bounced around back and forth because I am a person who grew up and aged out of the foster system and juvenile justice. But when my choice in where I wanted to live was finally my choice, Appleton is where I picked, and I haven't really left other than for a few trips that I hope nobody will hold that against me.
Well, we are happy you decided to stay here. And another thing that I want to share about Patti is one of the older people. So she's on our city council.
I am.
And between us and the rest of the listeners, Patti does roller derby.
I do. I'm off right now for an injury, but I am hoping to get that taken care of and get this knee rehabbed, and I'll be back on skates, smacking people around. It'll be great.
Oh my God, that's some. When I watch that stuff, woo, that scares me a little bit.
It is. I know it looks like women knocking each other down, but really, we're building each other up. It's one of the few spaces that I have been, like, all of me has been welcome. There's none of that. You're too bossy. You're too tall. You're too pretty. You're too this. You're too none of that. Like, where I remember, so something like totally changed my mind when I decided I was going to commit to it, because I'm an athlete. I always have been, and I'm not competitive at all or anything. But I was explaining to somebody that I usually will pick out the person who I think is probably the best at their position, and it's the position that I want to play, and then they become my competition. And I just remember one of the other teammates said, well, yeah, you could do that, or you could be really glad that they're on your team. And it just totally shifted, like, my whole perspective. And I was like, yes, this is where I need to be. And it has been one of the places that have taught me how to take up space and how to be even more unapologetically myself.
That is awesome.
Highly recommend you check out roller derby if you're thinking about it. And don't worry, they're not just going to throw you out there. Like, they teach you how to fall and everything. It's the first thing you learn is how to fall.
All right. Well, Patti, at this time, can you please share about your resource?
Yeah, absolutely. So Helios Heuristic is an organization that's run by people with the lived experience in child welfare and or substance use disorder. We're a group of recovery coaches, and we do everything we can to help a person explore, think about, and like put a plan of action in place and some recovery goals for themselves. And this is totally led by them. We don't have any treatment plans for them. We don't have any expectations. Like, there's really not a scenario where somebody could get, kicked out of our program because they had a reoccurrence of use or something like that. We really work with the parents where they're at and get them connected with whatever resources are around them. We typically work with individuals who are at that intersection of substance use and child welfare. So we help them, maybe understand their paperwork a little bit better, go as support to their social worker meetings, and then just having somebody there who has been through it and really does know what it's like, even just being that model, because sometimes when families are in it, you can't see to the other side. So having somebody who's like, you know what, I have been there, I got through it, I know the way out. What do you need? Who are your people? Who is your network? Who can we talk to? What are the resources? How do we get you whatever you need? And we follow their lead and then do whatever we can to remove barriers as easily as possible with as little paperwork as possible, because with all of the resources in the area, there's just so many papers to fill out. We don't want to add on to that. So yeah.
How long have you been around?
Well, I have been around in the community doing this kind of work, either voluntarily or through some other means, for about 20 years. Yep. But we have been, as a nonprofit organization, we're going into our third year as a nonprofit. And while this nonprofit is new, I am not new to nonprofit. And we've been working on building our board. And we have some really amazing people. I have Lynn Beyer on our board, who was the former executive director of REACH, and Sheng, who is the executive director at Us2 Behavioral Health. And they've just been absolutely amazing. And then our treasurer, Kathy Thompson, who's also on the county board, she was just absolutely amazing in the beginning stages and has been there from the beginning and gone through all the turmoil with us, and has been really key in building relationships for continuing the work that we do and getting our name out there too, to let people know that we are a resource and a low barrier resource.
How big is your team?
Right now, our team is down to 2. We had some turmoil in the, philanthropic and grant scenes, and with the changes to funding structures and what can and cannot be funded has given us a little bit of a hard time. So we went from 4 to 2. We do have some things coming down the pipeline that should hopefully restore the rest of our team back together so that we can cover more ground, because we have a waiting list as it is, and I swore I would never do that to the community and make them wait.
So Patty, my question is, if I rewind you a bit, you are already working for last 2 decades in this area. So what was the thought? Why you thought a nonprofit would be a good idea to give it a more structure? What was your thought behind? Was it to have more resource to it, or what kind of need you saw in the community that made you think now I need a nonprofit to work in this area?
So prior to the nonprofit, our main source was the training, consulting, and technical assistance for recovery-oriented systems of care, which is just a fancy way to say we told state and local governments and sometimes the federal government what evidence-based practice is, how it works, and sometimes they listen and sometimes they don't. But when I would be trying to get somebody a resource, there was just so many gaps in between each one. And especially here locally, we're a very resource-rich area. There is so much here that we don't have in other places, just from financial help to food security to, housing resources, all kinds of things. Many who I'm sure have been on this podcast, right? But there's been just so many gaps in between, even if that means it's a matter of transportation, or even getting bags for people for the food pantries, right? And then many of the resources, there is an abstinence requirement before you can gain access to them. And our people, the way substance use disorder works is it's a response to pain, right? So if we inflict more pain on people, they're going to use more substances. And many times this ends up getting seen as, that they just want to get high, or they just want to party, and they just want to have a good time, or they're choosing drugs over their children, all these other things. But really, I've not met anybody yet, not a single person yet, who was like, yeah, you know what, this bag right here is way more important than my children. Absolutely not, no. But I think one of the things that is a little bit difficult to reflect on that I've seen in the community is when we think about addiction as this just unknowable beast that we cannot tame, and it's going to kill people, and there's nothing that we can do about it. And when we hear rhetoric like, well, if an addict is happy with you, you're probably enabling them, that takes the social responsibility off of the resources and off of the community to be building relationship and treating people with dignity and respect. And sometimes the people that we are working with, the only thing they have left is their dignity and respect.
Right.
And if we're asking them to give that up in order to get their resource, like, we're complicit in that problem. And so seeing that and seeing more recent collective mind change about that, it really seemed pertinent that we had our own organization that could be grant and donor funded, because this is not a money-making operation. Like, we're not working with people who can pay for services, and we're working to solve problems of poverty. And I think from a nonprofit platform, we have an opportunity to educate people that, addiction and substance use, more often than not, is a result of poverty, not a cause of it. But we treat it as though it is a cause of poverty.
How do people get in your program? Is it referral based? Is there a cost associated with it? How does that work?
So we have a couple different ways that we do that. So there's a few organizations that we have that we've received referrals from locally, and then because it's completely voluntary, don't hold a county contract, so that the requirements to work with people would not have us have to be in the lead and in control, because what we really want is for that person to be invested in it. So most of the time, we get a lot of word of mouth referrals because we're in the community, we're in people's lives. Like, we're helping them navigate difficult relationships, we're helping them navigate resources, we're helping them navigate their own emotions about it, and getting support and probably some mental health support along the line with that too. So most of the time, the individuals who need the services are the ones that are reaching out themselves. Not that we don't or won't take referrals from other agencies. And like I had mentioned before, we had some good working relationship with Ryan House. We've done some good work with Harbor House and Apricity's services. There's a number of different, Babes is another one, community partner who has sent some referrals, and the jail ministry is another place that we've gotten some referrals. But even having people just find us on our website, which is helios-heuristic.org. You can reach out through there. All of our contact information is on there. And I'm pretty sure I've got flyers and business cards floating around in everybody's hands just as much as possible so they can get a hold of us.
It's a great website. I was looking at it, and one of the values which struck to me, and I would love to hear more about it, that we invite families to embrace their own power and giving them the tools and support to advocate for themselves. I want to learn more about it.
Yeah, so I think one of the things, especially about the child welfare lane, that anybody who's never been through it, and even in the recovery community knows about as much as the rest of the community about child welfare, which is usually only the really horrific cases that you see on the news.
Right.
So what they don't understand is how a simple game of telephone can turn into something that it really didn't need to. I know our counties and our social workers and the department heads are working hard. They know from the data that there are better health outcomes for kids and for families. Even if a parent is still using, it's still better to keep those family members and those connections together. So one of the things that we do is we help them gather and collect the questions that they want to ask ahead of time. And we go with them, right, to ask the questions. And we help explain, so this is the difference between criminal rights. This is the difference between parental rights. And this, when they use this word at this time, they mean this. These are the questions to ask your attorney. These are the ones that, I can't necessarily tell you because we have to reach out to them. But also here on the social workers side, yes, they actually have to do this. No, they're not doing anything sneaky behind your back, or they're not trying to trick you. This is something that they have to follow. So we try to do the best we can to eliminate some of those. It's almost like a language barrier between working poor-ish and professionalese, right? And trying to get that, smoothed out, because when there's a better connection there, child welfare, they hold all the power, they hold all the cards, and the social workers make the decisions based on the things they have to make the decisions about. So when we can foster a better relationship between them and better relationships between them and their other key people that are involved, which includes if, the child is placed with grandma or grandpa, which is better than with strangers for the kid, and there's a much higher likelihood of reunification or at least continued relationship if they are placed with a grandparent. That's stressful on that grandparent too. They often get stuck in a position where they feel like they have to choose between their kid and their grandkid, which I can't. As a mother myself, I can't imagine having to make that decision. So we do everything we can to make sure they are supported. If they, diapers are a thing that they need, or assistance with transportation, et cetera, we try to also get them that resource too. We really want to wrap around the whole family and let them know what they can and cannot ask for. So we try to give them the tools, and then if they're really just having a really hard time, here's the process that you can go through. You're not stuck. I think that being stuck and that hopelessness is what causes them to disengage, because if you don't feel like any of your efforts matter, then why would you do anything at all? And then that ends up being treated as if it is, again, defiance or choosing drugs over the kid, but really it's a person who's just in an incredible amount of pain, who needs somebody to just understand that they're not going to get up right now, and maybe just sit alongside me while I can't get up.
What is the age range of your constituency that you're serving? Because I've heard you mention adults, but I also heard you mention children. So what's the age range?
So people that are enrolled in our program are adults. So they are usually 18 or older. If they are a parent and they are under the age of 18 and they're involved in child welfare, that would not necessarily, or they're at risk of being involved in child welfare, that wouldn't disqualify them because they were under the age of 18. At the end of the day, we want families to be able to stay together. We want them to be able to get to the place they want to be at and meeting their own recovery goals. It is when I say family recovery coaching, a lot of times people think that we do recovery coaching for the youth. And while that is an incredibly valuable and needed space, we do have some community partners like Rise Together and Heads Up who do some of these similar programs in that space. But ours, when you look at the studies on youth mental health and youth substance use disorder, when you invest in mental health and substance use treatment for youth, there is improvement, but it is only marginal. But when the parents of those at-risk youth get the help and support they need, or they get into their mental health and they get their SUD treatment, the at-risk behaviors for youth all but completely drop off. So we decided that in our mission, we wanted to be as effective as possible for in the long run. We're looking at the long view, not just the acute crisis spot, right? Otherwise, you just have this high recidivism of people coming right back when there's nothing for the long term. So we're really looking at the long game on this for the next generation. So if we want to break generational curses, we have to start where the curse is and give those kids that parent, that family member, that relationship to the best of their ability and what they want it to look like.
So can you now share a narrative or a story that will help us understand the impact of your organization?
So like I had mentioned, I am a person with lived experience in this area, and I grew up bouncing around in the system, and I was in a foster home in Greenleaf, Wisconsin, and there was a veal farm there. And I worked on this veal farm, and I had tried to save this one cow. They had what it's called stargazers, and they were just going to destroy the animal immediately. And I was like, no, I can save him. I'll give him his shots, and I'll feed him and take care of him. And the owner of the calves said, well, you know what? You can do it. I'll buy it back from you, $100. And this was the 90s. So I was like, $100? I'm going to Sam Goody. All right. But unfortunately, he did not recover. And when it was really evident that he was not going to live, I did what I had seen other farmers do and put the animal out of his misery. And this was just before I was about to be finally reunified and went back home. And I went back home after having been at this foster home for, I think it was 2 years, maybe 2.5 years I was there, which was the longest I had been anywhere in a long time. And I was in my new room with my red shag carpeting, I was very excited about. I was putting my bed together, and my social worker comes in, and she says, "You got to get your stuff together. You're coming with me." And I looked at her and I said, "Lady, I'm not going anywhere. I just got home. I'm not going anywhere." And she was like, "Well, you can come with me, or I can have the police bring you out." And since my little cousin was there, my grandma was there, and everybody was happy that I was home, I decided not to make a scene, and I went with her. And I ended up having to be evaluated and placed. She had never done any background on farm life. She didn't have any of this. I mean, she literally wrote in my file that I was studying to be a serial killer. And I will never forget the day when I finally got my day in court. Chris Petros, if I ever get a chance to ever talk to her again, I would love to, because this was the first time that somebody, one, was speaking with reason and people were listening. And she went up there and she laid out all of the negligence, all the lack of due diligence, all of the projection, all of the criminalization that had been made of me and my situation in this. And having leverage and having somebody believe me, first of all, having somebody care enough and to do it so passionately. I'll never forget that my social worker, she got off that stand and there were just pit sweats almost all the way down to her waist. And I'm petty. I was also 14, so I was just like, good, finally, somebody makes you feel the way I feel, right? And while that is not the case in every social worker situation, but seeing how people will feel so powerless in this situation, and you feel like you're screaming into a void, or like you're wishing somebody would just believe you or just understand you, but because they are in this position of power and you're not, and you're in this situation and they're not, the tendency is to believe that obviously you did something to deserve to be here. And knowing how those unintended harms happen within the system. I mean, even just clerical errors. Like, there's a big difference between the boy found a dead bird and that boy killed the bird. But once you get it written in paper the wrong way, like, it ends up becoming this big thing that it doesn't need to be. So giving people the ability to advocate really stems, at least for me, from that moment of seeing that I didn't have to be hopeless. There are rules. And if I just learn what the rules are and how to work with them, like, I might be okay. I might be able to come out of this.
That is powerful, I will say, especially when you're young and you feel more powerless because people don't take you seriously.
Absolutely.
So, thank you for sharing it.
What's a myth or a misunderstanding that most people have about the journey of recovery?
Ooh, how much time do we have?
Oh,
That you can enable somebody to death. If there was one thing I could just wrap up, if I have to pick one, that is one thing I wish I could wrap up and take out of this. There is no need to hit a rock bottom in order to recover. Okay? We do not need to that it is counterproductive to helping somebody recover. And then the recovery back is so much harder than it needs to be. There's every single speaker I've ever heard, every single story I've ever read, every single person in recovery I've ever known, even in my own story. There are so many moments where if they had somebody or had something to help them, that it wouldn't have had to get to the point where it did. It doesn't have to get to the point of homelessness. It doesn't have to get to the point of desperation. It does not have to get that bad. And if we're cutting off funding for somebody's rent as a parent or grandparent or whoever to teach them a lesson, all that's going to happen is they're going to end up still using and they're going to be homeless, which is going to make it that much harder for them to be able to get services because they don't have an address. It's going to make it that much harder for them to believe that something can be different. And there's going to be that much more shame and guilt and embarrassment and feeling of disconnection, isolation, and being alone, especially from the people that you love. So, there are things that you can do if you want to make sure that the money you're sending isn't being spent on substances. And there's a way to do it without, allowing for them to continue to get more substances with the funds. But it is absolutely a myth that they're never going to learn anything if they don't have any of these hard consequences. No. If you take a minute to ask them what they know and what they think they need to learn, you'll be really, really surprised. And I bet you they had already been thinking that whatever they have going on is problematic and they just don't really know what to do about it. And they don't feel like they can talk to anybody about it.
Are there any upcoming initiatives or engagement opportunities?
So we are looking at hosting our Helios 10-year anniversary, and we would like to make it a fundraiser for the Heuristic program. So more details will be coming out about that very soon, so you can keep an eye on our Facebook page, which is Helios Heuristic, as well as my LinkedIn profile. I post that on there for Patti Heffernan, as well as my husband who has rejoined our team, Jesse Heffernan, also on LinkedIn. There will be some details about when and where that is going to be. Our anniversary date is May the 4th, so this will be our 10th year doing this work as a official business, and anybody who is willing to donate to the fundraiser efforts, that would be excellent.
Is there anything that the community can do to be helpful?
Again, we are working on fundraising initiatives. We are hoping to connect with donors or other possible grants that would either fund our operations as coaches, continuing our training as coaches in the field that we are in, and then also our barrier removal fund. And this is a fund that we use to make sure that issues of poverty do not become, a crisis level. These can be anything from small car repair, fine that's in the way of a driver's license. It could be a security deposit. We have done paying rent preventatively to avoid work boots, things like that. Basically, and a U-Haul is one that we do a lot, actually, or a month of storage is another thing that we do a lot. So it's basically a fund that we use to remove any barriers that there isn't already another resource for, or the resource requires it to be at crisis level before they will help, because we're all about the prevention and the long game and mitigating as much suffering as possible.
Is there anything we did not ask you or you want to share more with us? I know how resource-rich your organization is and what a beautiful vision and mission you have. So if there's anything we did not ask, we would love to hear more.
I'd have to say, I want more people to understand what we do. I can talk about this all day long. When you put me on the spot, I'm like, oh man, there's so many things. My brain goes in 10 different directions at once. I think I just really want people to understand that we don't do this necessarily to create a big change. We're just walking alongside people who have never had anybody that they could rely on before in their life. And if we could change the mindset that we don't want people to become dependent on services, I think the irony is that would cause them to no longer need them. If there wasn't any time limit, if there wasn't any expectation that, you should have it together in 6 months or a year or 28 days of treatment, if there wasn't any limits, like if we could just give people what they need for as long as they need it, I think we would see just an amazing return on that. The especially the mothers and the fathers, all of the parents that I've worked with are just incredibly amazing, resourceful, skillful, resilient people who don't even have any business being as resilient as they are, because life has really, really kicked them around. And I think a lot of our talent and a lot of our solutions to problems are trapped in that space. And given just, a little bit of a leg up, we're going to have some really amazing leaders popping up.
Who can people contact if they would like to learn more, or where can they look?
They can look on our website, heliosheuristic.org. Again, on our Facebook page, which is also Helios Heuristic. Our contact information is on the website. Probably get a direct line right to my phone, and we'll tell you whatever you want to know, get you brochures, get you connected with my one other teammate. And hopefully we will be a growing team very soon. Our program manager is very anxious to be able to come back. She misses me. She misses working for us. We had a great team.
That's awesome.
So, are there any volunteering opportunities too as you grow your team?
Volunteering opportunities, we may have some for a crisis coming in the near future. It is quite a time commitment and it is quite a training commitment, just so that we are upfront about that. While I am very, very high energy and I need to stay busy a lot, I do eventually need to rest. So having somebody who can maybe take a 2 a.m. call once in a while on my behalf would be absolutely great. As far as volunteers, if you are somebody who has a lot of administrative skills and would like to volunteer your time, there's something that we could use on projects for that. We haven't got any events other than our fundraiser coming up for now, but absolutely do not hesitate to ask and reach out and see where we're at.
Now it's a shout out time.
Shout outs. Oh my gosh, so many. Obviously, Fox Cities Roller Derby. I'm going to shout out to them. And let's see what else to Babes, who's been so supportive of our work. To Rise Together, who does youth programming. And I'm excited to be sharing office space with them very soon. And so many. The Community Foundation for continuing to see the value in our work and making, grant access as simple as possible and advocating for us so much. The City of Appleton for letting me serve in that capacity and being able to build relationships and see where we can continue to build more bridges within our community in all the different lanes. I mean, shout out to all of the services that I ever used to get to where I am. And that means, everything. St. Vincent de Paul, Salvation Army, St. Joe's Food Pantry, Food Share, Medicare. Oh, Reach Counseling. I don't know where I would be without Reach Counseling. They're absolutely amazing. They've been an amazing community partner. They've been just incredibly supportive, and their services, I've had to use them in the past, are absolutely fantastic. And oh gosh, I'm sure there are so many more, but I don't want to leave anybody out. Oh, but yeah, those are our community partners have been so great.
All right. At this time, we're going to start wrapping up this episode. So, Patti, we just want to take a moment and say thank you.
Glad to be here. Thanks.
Appleton Engaged listeners, we also would like to say thank you to you for spending time with us, giving us your minds and ears, learning about another amazing resource in our community, helping to make this a better place. It's pretty amazing how many resources and how resource rich we are here in Appleton and the surrounding Fox Cities area, as Patti had mentioned earlier. If you've been listening to episodes, you know that our mission is to become the #1 podcast in Northeast Wisconsin, and we need your assistance to be able to do that. So what can you do? A couple of things. If you're listening and you have questions you would like us to ask our guests, let us know. If you would like to be a guest, you should let us know. And if you would like to recommend anyone to come be a guest, you should let us know. And you can reach out to us at belonging@appletonwi.gov. Once again, that is belonging@appletonwi.gov. Also, we think we have a really special resource here in this podcast called Appleton Engaged. The more you listen, the more informed you are as a community member, and the more community members we have that are informed of these resources, the stronger our community is. But how do we get in front of more eyes and ears? Well, it's called analytics. So that means as you listen to this podcast, if you see an opportunity to give us a ranking, give us those 5 stars. If you have a few moments, write us a review. Also, if there's an opportunity to subscribe, please take the opportunity to subscribe. These are the things that increase our analytics, and the better our analytics, the more community members are able to learn about this amazing resource known as Appleton Engaged.
Thank you so much, Patti, for sharing all the amazing work you are doing. And we live in such a resource-rich region that makes me grateful every day. and to see all of the individuals like you who are working to make this community a bit better each day. Until next time, stay thoughtful, stay curious, and stay engaged.